topic that we have chosen for today, mixtures questions, mixtures and allegation. Typically, a topic that many students find difficult because there are too many moving components in the same question, right? Although mixtures are an application of ratios and percentages, because of these moving components, they appear more difficult. When I say ratios and percentages, lot of you are like, okay, I know ratios, I know percentages. Those are simple topics. So if you're good with ratios and percentages, there's no reason why you can't be good with mixtures. There are certain techniques, there are certain strategies that you need to know and apply on mixtures questions, which will actually make your problem solving easier, faster, and less stressful, more efficient, and more accurate. Right? That's what we are going to discuss today. What are we going to cover in today's session? See, because I know that this webinar has been done at least once, and I remember we ourselves have done this webinar, I think twice. What I did was I removed some of the older questions. I brought in some new questions, most of which are official questions, and I have kept a fair chunk of discussion on allegations and mixtures, using the allegation diagram to solve mixtures questions. But apart from that, I've also included a component where I discuss mixtures of three components, questions involving three components. I've also included a component where I teach removal and replacement, right? Although it's not a model that is tested very often on the GMAT, it has been tested. There is history that removal and replacement questions have come on the GMAT, right? So that's one component that I've kept towards the end. So we'll be starting off with some basic preparation work, bringing all of you up to speed. Then we'll be discussing the weighted average and the allegation diagram. We'll be solving some questions where we apply the allegation diagram. Then we'll move on to the mixtures with three components. Then we'll shift to the replacement and removal model. All right. So that's what we are going to cover today. And for that, as I told you, I want all of us to do some kind of groundwork to come up to speed, so that all of you can start at the same level without having to worry that your skills were different when you started off. So what I want you to do here is I want you to answer some very simple questions I'll ask you. All right. And these are ratio related questions. Therefore, I'm sure all of you will be able to answer them in some way, right? Now, let's assume there is $900 to be broken up in the ratio of 2:3:5, right? Among three persons, let's say A, B, and C, right? Now, what is the proportion of money that A receives? How do we find this? So most of you will say, if I want to find the proportion of money that A receives, I will take the number 2, put it in the numerator, and the denominator would be 2 plus 3 plus 5, and I would multiply this fraction with the total money that was to be divided, right? That is 900. You would say this, right? Similarly, if I ask you what is the proportion that B receives, you'd follow a similar approach and say 3 upon 2 plus 3 plus 5 into 900. Now, if you look at this fraction here, 2 by 2 plus 3 plus 5, or you look at 3 by 2 plus 3 plus 5, both these fractions represent they represent a part of the whole, right? Or a part of the total. So therefore, you should remember that the denominator here or the denominator always represents the whole or the total, as we have learned in fractions, right? So that's how you convert a ratio to a fraction and understand that the denominator always represents the whole and the numerator, for example, represents the individual part. Okay? How is this relevant? This is relevant because there can be a question like, okay, there is 1500 ml of an acid solution wherein acid and water are in the ratio of 2:3, right? You should be able to apply your knowledge of ratios and find out the proportion of acid and the proportion of water. So the proportion of acid would be 2 upon, okay, I don't have space here, I'll do it here, 2 upon 2 plus 3 into 1500. That would be the proportion of acid, and the proportion of water would be 3 upon 2 plus 3 into 1500. Right? So this is one concept that you need to know, and you should be able to apply this concept in solving basic questions on mixtures. Right? So I hope this is clear to all of you. Now with that, let us move on to the next basic concept that you need to know. Let's take an example of these numbers. Let us say the marks of certain students in a class. I'll not tell you how many students, I'll just give you the marks of students in a class. Let's say I give you a 30, I give you a 40, a 50, a 60, let us say a 90, and let's say a 120. Okay? So now, if I ask you what is the average marks per student in the class, what kind of average would you calculate here? How would you calculate the average? You would obviously say sum of all the marks divided by the number of students. The sum of all the marks would be the addition of all the values. So I would probably pair 120 with 30, give me a 150. 90 with a 60 gives me another 150. Then a 50 and a 40 gives me 90. So that is 390. So sum of all the marks is 390. There are 6 values. So there are 6 students. So 390 by 6, 6 6 are 36, 3 remainder 30, 6 5 are 30. So you can say 65 is the average marks per student. Now please tell me, what kind of average does the 65 represent? Are there different types of averages that we know? If yes, what kind of average is the 65? Deepak, AM is arithmetic mean, and arithmetic mean is a common terminology given to averages. So you will still have to tell me what kind of an average it is, right? No, that is not right, Asim. I've already mentioned average marks per student. Having mentioned that, why would I ask you the same question? That would be absurd on my part, right? Madhukar, I said there are two types of averages, right? There are different types of averages, correct? So I'm asking you, what type of average did we calculate in this question, right? That is right. Very, very good. So the 65 here represents the simple average. Why does it represent the simple average? Because of the fact that all the numbers are taken exactly once. So when do we calculate the simple average? The simple average is calculated when the frequency or the weightage of every element is the same. So every element is occurring exactly once here, right? But one point to note is that the average here is in between the smallest value and the biggest value, right? That's the basic property of any average. It will always lie somewhere in the middle, right? Your average will never be here. Your average will never be smaller than the smallest value. Your average will never be bigger than the biggest value, right? And this number is following that property. It's definitely between 30 and 120, right? Now let's take another example wherein we say, okay, we have the marks of certain students in a class again. But this time, I have the 30 coming up maybe a couple of times, a 40 coming up, let's say 3 times, 50 twice, 60 twice again. Let's say the 90 comes up 4 times, and maybe the 120 comes up twice. So how do I calculate the average marks per student here? Can I calculate the average marks per student in this case? The answer is obviously a yes. The simple difference between this question and the previous one was is that there are more students here, and there are some students who've got the same number, right? Which means every number is not appearing the same number of times. It's appearing different number of times. So how do I calculate the average here, and what kind of average is it called? So whatever average we are calculating here, what type of average is it? It's called the weighted average. Excellent. Because the weightage of every component is different. So this is the weighted average. So you just take the value and multiply it by the weightage. What is the weightage of 30? 2, because it appears 2 times. What is the weightage of 40? 3, because it appears 3 times. What is the weightage of 50? 2. 60, 2. And by observation, we know 90 has the highest weightage here because it appears 4 times. All right. Now, what do we divide this with? We divide this with the sum of the weightages, which is 2 plus 3, 5, 5 plus 2, 7, 7 plus 2, 9, 9 plus 4, 13, 13 plus 2, 15. So that's 60, 120, 100, another 120, another 360 plus a 240 divided by 50. So we have a 240 here, we have a 600 here, 600 plus 240 is 840, 840 plus 160 is 1,000. 1,000 by 15 gives me approximately about 66.6 is the average marks of every student. So you see that in weighted average, it's not only the average that matters, it's not only the number that matters, the weightage matters more, right? Wherever the weightage is more, the overall average will tend towards that number, right? So you see that this number here, 66.6, is the closest to which number? You have these numbers, you have 30, you have a 40, you have a 60, you have a 90, and you have a 120, correct? You also have a 50. So if you look at all the numbers, this number is closest to which number? Right? It's closest to 60. Correct. Why is it between 60 and 90? Because of the fact that 90 has the highest weightage here. That's probably why it is between 60 and 90. Madhukar, you have to understand that the calculation that I showed here is looking similar because I've taken numbers which are similar, right? Now, if you look at another example, at a later stage, you will understand how weighted average is different. As the name itself suggests, weighted average is like a pan. It's like a balance. Wherever the weightage is more, your overall average will go down towards that pan. Whereas simple average is not like that. Simple average cannot behave like this because there the weightages are same. Just to give you another example, this question goes out to all of you, but Madhukar, you can try probably specifically, right? So if I have a class 10 with a section A and a section B, let's say the average marks of all the students in section A is 80 and the average marks of all the students in section B is 90. Can you tell me what is the average marks of the entire class 10 of this school? Why not? Why not? So do you now understand how weighted average is different from simple average? That's how it is different. So why are we talking about ratios? Why are we talking about averages when the session is on mixtures and alligation? Might be a question on some of your minds. That's because the weighted average concept is the fundamental basis for alligation and mixtures. Okay? So if I have two groups, two categories, let's say group 1 and group 2, and the average of group 1 is A1 and group 2 is A2. The number of values in group 1 is N1, number of values in group 2 is N2. If I combine both the groups and make it into one group, right, to get group 3, how would I find the average of group 3? I would obviously use the weighted average formula. And now you understand that you're actually mixing group 1 with group 2 to find group 3. So how do I find the average here? What will I do? I will multiply these two components added, that is the numerator. My denominator will be the sum of N1 and N2. So A1 N1 plus A2 N2 by N1 plus N2. This is obviously when you have two groups. What happens if there are three groups? Nothing drastically changes except that you'll probably have a A3N3 and a N3 added. That is the beauty of the weighted average equation, right? Especially when there are more than two components. But if there are two components, you can either use the equation or you can do something else. But before we get to that something else, right, I thought we'll just do an example problem just to apply our knowledge of weighted average. So if 3 pounds of dried apricots if 3 pounds of dried apricots that cost X dollars per pound are mixed with 2 pounds of prunes that cost Y dollars per pound. So you have apricots, the cost is X dollars per pound. What is the quantity you're taking? You're taking 3 pounds. You have prunes which cost Y dollars per pound. How many pounds are you taking? You're taking 2 pounds. What is the cost in dollars per pound of the mixture? So you're trying to find the average cost per pound, and therefore you're trying to find the weighted average here because the weights are different. Apricots are 3 pounds, prunes are 2 pounds, right? So you'll see here that 3x is the total cost of the apricots, 2y is the total cost of the prunes, divided by 5. So that is how the weighted average concept forms the fundamental basis of mixtures. So what I mean to say here is that if nothing else works in a mixture problem, you can always fall back on the weighted average equation to be able to solve the problem. All right, let's take another example. Your answers are right. The answer is A for sure. Let's take another example. A solution of 150 liters contains 40% alcohol. A slightly more challenging question compared to the previous one. So 150 liters is the total solution, out of which 40% is alcohol. So how much alcohol do I have? 40% of 150 will give me 60 liters. So I have 60 liters of alcohol, therefore I have 60% water, which is 90 liters of water. How many liters of pure water must be added to reduce the overall alcohol concentration of the mixture to 25%? How many liters? That's the unknown. Because I have an unknown, let's take it as X liters. So I'm adding water. Remember, I'm not adding alcohol. So the alcohol will still remain 60. So now, how much alcohol do I have? I have 60 liters. How much water do I have? Earlier I had 90 liters. Now I've added X. So how much do I have? I have 90 plus X liters. What do I know? I know that the final alcohol concentration is 25%. How do I find out the alcohol concentration? Alcohol concentration is always alcohol divided by total. It's a ratio of the alcohol to the total, right? Which is 60 upon, what is the new total now? The new total is 150 plus X. This should be equal to 1 by 4 because 25% represents 1 by 4. So 4 into 60 is 240. 240 equal to 150 plus X. X becomes 90, which means that how many liters did you add? You added 90 liters. You want to cross check whether your answer is right or wrong, you can always do that, right? Now, earlier we had 150 liters. Now, how many liters do we have? We have a total of 240 liters. Out of 240, what is the alcohol quantity? Alcohol is still 60. Water is 180. What is 60 upon 240? 60 upon 240 is 1 by 4. 1 by 4 is 25%, which means that your answer is right. So this is like the ratio approach of solving a mixture question, right? And there is nothing wrong with this approach, except that it probably takes time, it involves equations, and therefore it might create trouble by inducing errors, right? So I've seen people doing 60 by 150 plus X equal to 1 by 3 or 1 by 5 mistakenly, right? And that creates errors. That is the drawback of this method. So if that is the drawback, what do we do? As I was telling you earlier, this equation that you see here is the weighted average equation. When you reorganize this, you see here in the next step, I have multiplied this A with the denominator, right? And I've collected N1 onto one side, N2 onto one side, and I've created this equation. This equation can be written in the form of a diagram. So this is called the alligation diagram. So when you use the alligation diagram to solve mixtures questions, it makes your problem much, much, much simple. Think about it. In my earlier problem, I had 150 liters, out of which 40% was alcohol, 60% was water. I added pure water. Remember, pure water doesn't have any alcohol, it has only water. That's why it's pure water, right? So, if we now draw the alligation diagram in terms of the percentage of alcohol, one of the values here will be 40. You're mixing the 40% alcohol with the 0% alcohol. What was the final mixture you got? Your final mixture was 25% alcohol. What do we do now? We subtract the 25 from 40 to get 15. We subtract the 0 from 25 to get 25. And we find the ratio of these two. What is the ratio of 25 is to 15? 25 is to 15 gives us 5 is to 3. Which means my original solution, this was the original solution, and this was pure water. It means my original solution and pure water were mixed in the ratio of 5 is to 3. Which means 5 parts of the original, 3 parts of pure water. But the 5 parts is how many liters? The 5 parts is 150 liters. If the 5 parts is 150 liters, 3 parts will be 90 liters. You got the same answer, but in much lesser time and with much lesser effort. So in the alligation diagram, always take one of the values, one of the percentage values is the higher value. Typically, I keep it on the left. You may prefer to keep it on the right also. It will not change your answer. I keep the bigger value on the left. I keep the smaller value on the right. This value in the middle will always represent the mixture. Okay? And finally, N1 and N2 are always expressed as a ratio. Remember, N1 by N2 is a ratio. Any questions here? Did we understand the alligation diagram? All right, whether we understood this or not, we'll eventually find out as we solve questions. All right, let's solve a question wherein we apply this alligation diagram. I'll solve this question with you, and after that you can take over. All right, let's identify the percentages first in this question. 12 ounces of a strong vinegar solution are diluted with 50 ounces of water to form a 3% vinegar solution. What was the original concentration of the original solution? All right. So I don't know the concentration of the original solution. So I'll start with the conventional method of weighted averages and ratios. I'll show you how that works. And after that, I'll show you the alligation diagram. So let us say the concentration required is X%. All right. How many ounces do I have? I have 12 ounces, right? So X by 100 into 12, okay, is the vinegar. Because this is the X% solution. What did you do here? You diluted this with 50 ounces of water. Okay, earlier there were, so let's draw a vinegar solution first. How many ounces? 12 ounces. So X% vinegar, and let us say Y% water. Clearly X plus Y should give me 100, right? So Y by 100 into 12 is the water. what did I do? I poured 50 ounces of water into this. So what happened now? I got a total of 62 ounces, out of which how much is vinegar? Vinegar is still x by 100 into 12. How much is water? Water is y by 100 into 12 plus the 50 that you poured, correct? Now the question clearly says we have a 3% vinegar solution, right? So now the vinegar that we have is 3%, 3 by 100 of what? Of 62, because our total weight is 62. So this will be 3 into 2, 6, 3 6 are 18, 186 by 100. So how many ounces do I have? I have 1.86 ounces of vinegar. And this 1.86 ounce should be equal to x by 100 of 12, right? So now calculating x would be 100 into 1.86 by 12. 100 into 1.86 will give me 186. 186 by 12. Approximately how much? 12 ones are 12. So if I calculate 186 by 12, 12 ones are 12, 66. 12 fives are 60. 6 remainder, put a decimal, 0. 12 fives are 60. So 15.5 is the percentage, original percentage of the solution. So this is the equation method. This is the method where you use your knowledge of ratios and percentages to solve the problem. Sounds convincing? Does it sound useful, or do you think it is very time consuming? All right. Okay. I guess some of you would at least say so, right? Now I'll show you how to use the alligation diagram in this. All right. I'll just clear the screen now. Now, I have the solution on one side. I have the pure water on one side. Do I know the concentration of the original solution? I don't, right? So I'll take it as X. This X is what? X is the concentration of what liquid? Is it the concentration of vinegar or is it the concentration of water? This is the concentration of vinegar, correct? So the solution has X% vinegar. Tell me, pure water will have how much percent vinegar? Okay, better to represent it using a diagram so that you will not get confused. This is your 12 ounces of vinegar solution which has X% vinegar. Okay. Now you have another container which has pure water. So this container of pure water has how much percent vinegar is what I asked, right? Because you're mixing the two. Don't look at 100 minus X. I'm not talking of how much water is here. I'm talking how much vinegar is in this container. 0. Good. Pure water will obviously not contain any vinegar, guys. So you're mixing the two now, correct? When you mix the two, what is the percentage of the vinegar that you got of the resultant mixture? Yes, please. 3. Good. Okay. So we always subtract. Madhukar, that's exactly what I explained in a very simple way. No, I said we are not looking at the water in the solution, right? I said we are mixing one container with another container, right? That's why I wrote another container here, no? I said this is a container that has pure water. You're mixing it with the vinegar solution. So my question was, how much percentage vinegar is in there in this container, right? I am not worried about the water in this solution. I already know that it is 100 minus X percent, right? So in mixtures, you're always looking to mix two components. That's why you have two containers. All right. So in the alligation diagram, we always subtract the middle value from the higher value. Obviously, the higher value here is X because the other value is 0, right? So this will become X minus 3. We always subtract the lower value from the middle value. That's why the arrow is like this, 3 minus 0, okay? 3 minus 0 will give me 3. Remember, this is a ratio, okay? So 3 upon X minus 3 is actually how much? Is actually 12 by 50 because you had 12 ounces of the solution and you added 50 ounces of pure water. Now we just have to simplify this. 2 6s are 12, 2 25s are 50. 25 into 3 is 75. 6 into X minus 3 is 6X minus 18. So how much is 6X? 6X is 93. So X is 15.5, which is D. A much simpler equation you have here and a much simpler calculation you have here just because of the alligation diagram. The only place where you have to be careful is when you're forming the diagram. You have to put the right numbers in the right places. Okay? Are we clear here? Any questions, any doubts? I'll also show you another way of drawing the alligation diagram. So this alligation diagram was in terms of concentration of vinegar. We can also draw another alligation diagram which is in terms of concentration of water. Okay? So my solution has how much water? Now is where I'll use your values, Madhukar. My solution has 100 minus X percent of water, right? My pure water has 100% of water. And how much percentage does the solution have? Final mixture have 97%. Excellent. So which is the higher value now? Out of the two values, which is the higher value? Obviously 100 is the higher value. So you subtract the middle value from the higher value, get 3. From this value, from the middle value, you subtract the lower value. So what will you get? 97 minus 100 is a minus 3. Minus of minus X is X minus 3. Do you see that you got the same ratio again? That is the beauty of the alligation diagram, right? You can create an alligation diagram practically in terms of any parameter that you want. You want a diagram in terms of water, you get 1. You want a diagram in terms of vinegar, you'll get 1. But eventually both the diagrams will give you the same ratio. Your answer will never change. Clear on this? Any problems till now? What about the others? Any problems, any doubts? I want all of you to be a little more interactive, people. It's an afternoon session. I'm all capable of like putting all of you to sleep if you're not interactive. Okay, all right. Okay, let's move to the next question then. Okay, so this is another question. So I want all of you to form the allegation diagram in this, solve the question using the allegation diagram. Okay. I will have a timer handy for me to use. I will give you all 2.5 minutes. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Starting now. Yes, go ahead. 2.5 minutes. Okay, people, that's 2.5 minutes. You can post your answers in the chat box now. Thanks for holding on till now. You can post your answers in the chat box. Okay, I see a E corrected to a B for Bravo. Okay, what else? That's all, 2 answers. Okay, there are 2 bars of gold silver alloy. So I have 2 bars. One piece has 2 parts of gold to 3 parts of silver. So here the gold is to silver ratio is 2:3. Another has 3 parts of gold to 7 parts of silver. Gold is to silver here is 3:7. So here, what would be the total weight? And here, what would be the total weight? So what would be the total weight in the first bar? Can we say 5? Here it is 10. So what is the proportion of gold here? How would you find the proportion of gold? You would obviously say 2 by 5, 2 upon 2 plus 3. And what is the proportion of gold here? That would be 3 by 10. Now to remember, 2 by 5 is nothing but a 40%, which means you're saying the first piece has 40% gold, 60% silver. So can you tell me what is 3 by 10 as a percentage? %, right? So you're saying the second piece has a 30% gold and 70% silver. What are you doing with these two? You're melting both and you're mixing it and you're creating another piece, single piece, right? Wherein the gold and silver are in the ratio of 5:11. So what is the proportion of gold in the final bar? It will be 5 by 16. 5 upon 5 plus 11. So what is 1 by 16 as a percentage? Anyone? Anybody? 1 by 16 as a percentage? .25. Excellent. So 1 by 16 is 6.25%. Therefore, what will be 5 by 6? Obviously 6.25 into 5, correct? Which will be how much? .25%, right? So we now have all the percentages that we want. So 40 is one of the values on the top, 30 is one of the values on the top, 31.25 is the final value of the mixture. So 40 minus 31.25 is 8.75. 31.25 minus 30 is 1.25. So what is the ratio in which the first and the second have been mixed? The ratio in which the first and the second have been mixed is 1:7. What is the ratio? What is the weight of the final bar? The weight of the final bar is 8 kilograms, which means the first bar should be 1 kilogram, the second bar should be 7 kilograms. Are we clear? Do you recognize that the final, what is the final percentage here? The final percentage of gold is 31.25, right? And what is the proportion of gold in the second one? The proportion of gold in the second one is 30. Why is the final mixture very, very close to 30? Because the second component is weighing the highest. You have put 7 kilograms of the second one. So it's obvious that your final mixture will be very, very close to 30, not to 40. Okay, that's how weighted average works. I told you earlier, weighted average works like a balance. So this is a situation where you have put 1 kg here, but you have put 7 kg here. So the overall average will obviously be very, very close to 7 kilograms. Clear on this? Clear how to use the alligation diagram now? Any problems, any confusions? Okay, all right, none. So let's move to the application part. So a lot of you might be thinking, okay, the alligation diagram is applicable only when there's a direct problem on mixtures. Not necessarily. It's applicable in so many other areas also. And that is the brilliance of the method, right? That's why it's such a sought after method. So I want you to go through this problem. I'll give you 2 minutes. I want you to solve this using any method that you want. I'm not going to impose the alligation diagram on you, but if you want to use it, go ahead. I'll give you 2 minutes starting now. If you have got an answer, hold on. Don't post it in the chat box until I ask you to. All right, 2 minutes, people. You can post your answers now. Okay, I see a C. I see a C again. I see another C. Any other answers, people? C again. One more C. That's interesting. All right. Nancy won a lottery and got a lot of money. He invested some part of it in mutual funds, which guaranteed 6% rate of return, and the other part in gold, which gave 13% rate of return. If he earned 10% from both the investments, calculate the ratio in which the money was invested in mutual funds and gold. So this is where you have to be careful. You have to calculate the ratio of mutual funds is to gold. Mutual funds is to gold. So 13 is the higher value, 6 is the lower value, 10 is the middle value. Because 10% is what he eventually earned from the mixture of the two. So 13 minus 10 is 3, 10 minus 6 is 4. It is always a good habit to write down the name of the component. This is gold and this is mutual funds. We are trying to find the ratio of mutual funds to gold. So the answer is 3:4. The trap answer here is 4:3 for people who just get excited looking at 4:3 and mark A. You have to be careful about what is asked. And what is asked is mutual funds is to gold, not the other way around. Okay? All right. So it seems like a lot of you have got a hang of how to use the alligation diagram now when you're mixing two components. I think I can say that with relative confidence now, right? So let's take another question now. Again, I'll give you 2 minutes here. I want you to see how much time you will take. After you get an answer, hold back. Post your answer in the chat box when I ask you to. Okay, people, that's 2 minutes. You can mark your answers now. Okay, I see a B for Bravo. I see a D for Delta. Any other answers? I'm estimating that there should be at least one more answer coming up, one more different answer. But I'll hold on. Let's see. Okay, I see another D. Okay, another D. All right. So let's look at how to draw the diagram here. See, remember in the allegation diagram, there are 5 components. If any 4 components are given, you can always find out the 5th component. As simple as that. Remember, the average values will always come at the top. The average age of all the adults, which is a mixture of women and men. So the mixture value is 35. Average age of the men was exactly 38. I'll put the 38 here because I always put the higher value on the left side. Some of you are like, Arvind, how do you know the higher value is 38? Because I have a habit of looking at the options. Looking at the options tells me that the average age of the women is lower, right? So that's why I put 38 on the left side. I don't know the average age of the women. I'll take it as X. Do I know the ratio of men and women? This is the men. This is the women. Do I know the ratio of the men and women? Absolutely, because I know there are 22 men, there are 26 women. So 22 by 26 is 11 by 13. So I know this is 11, I know this is 13. Just execute the allegation diagram like how you would, okay? So for example, if I give you P, Q, R, S and T, you would say P minus R by R minus Q is equal to T by S. That is what you would say. Do the same thing here, right? You would say 38 minus 35 upon 35 minus X. 38 minus 35 upon 35 minus X equal to 13 by 11. Okay, just do this. Just execute the allegation diagram. Once you do that, the equation will take care of everything else. So what do we have here? We have 3 by 35 minus X equal to 13 by 11. 11 into 3 is 33. 35 into 13. 13 5s are 65. 13 3s are 39 plus 6, 45. 455 minus 13x. So I can say 13x is equal to 455 minus 33. 13x equal to 422. So x equal to 422 by 13. 13 ones are, 13 threes are, 13 threes are 39. So I am left with a 3, 32. So 13 twos are 26. So this is the 422. Divide this by 13, 13 threes are 39. 3 remainder, 13 twos are 26. 6 remainder, 32.4, 52. So 32.4 is closest to 32.5. The answer here is D for delta. So don't shy away from using the allegation diagram if you don't know one of the components. If 4 components are given, you can always find out the 5th component if you just execute the allegation diagram. Are we clear? Any problems here? Awesome. How many of you did not use the allegation diagram? Say a yes. That's okay, that's completely fine. It's not a mandate that you should use it. How many of you use the allegation diagram? You can type in a yes if you use the allocation diagram. Okay, no problem. All right. Okay, now moving on to the second component, the second segment that I had mentioned about mixtures of three components. So when it comes to mixtures of three components, you have to understand that it becomes a weighted average problem. Okay, so weighted average problem having group 1, group 2, and group 3. If the average of group 1 is A1, average of group 2 is A2, average of group 3 is A3, and the number of values, which is nothing but the weightage of group 1 is N1, of group 2 is N2, and the group 3 is N3. If you combine all of the three groups to form a single group, the weighted average, as we discussed, let's say A will be equal to A1 N1 plus A2 N2 plus A3 N3 upon A1 plus upon N1 plus N2 plus N3. So this is like the fundamental equation you have to use for solving questions on mixtures which have three components. Okay. So let's try this out on this problem here. I'll give you all 2 minutes of time. Solve this question. This is a DS question which makes it a little harder. And tell me how it went. I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay, guys, time up. Post your answers, please. Okay, I see a Charlie, I see a Delta, see a few Deltas. Okay, all right. So a paint mixture was formed by mixing exactly three colors of paint. What are the three colors? Blue, green, and red. So I know that the mixture has three components: blue, green, and red. That's the mixture. I know the component of blue is X%. So out of the total, X% is blue, Y% is green, and Z% is red. For our convenience, let us take the total weight of the mixture as B plus G plus R. B gallons of blue, G gallons of green, and R gallons of red, right? Now, we do know that the value of B is 1, the value of R is 3. So therefore, the total mixture now becomes 4 plus G. So we know that this is X by 100 of G plus 4. This is Y by 100 of G plus 4. And this is Z by 100 of G plus 4. How many gallons of green paint were used? We are trying to find the value of G. So we know from the first statement, we know X equal to Y. That means we have a relationship between the number of gallons of blue paint and the number of gallons of red paint. So we know if we take, for example, X equal to 10, Y equal to 10, we are saying 10% of G plus 4 is equal to 10% of Y plus 4. Or rather, G plus 4, not Y plus 4. So do we know the value of this? Yes, we do. We know that this is 1. Do we know the value of this? Yes, we do. We know it is 3. So we'll always be able to find the value of G from the first statement. Do we actually have to find out G? It is not required because it's a data sufficiency question. Second statement alone, we know that the value of z is a 60. So first statement alone is sufficient. The second statement alone, by the way, I don't mean to say that these two are equal. I just meant to say that the percentages are equal. And I also meant to say that this is equal to 1 and this is equal to 3. I didn't mean to say that these two are equal. All right. The second statement is z equal to 60, which means x and y should give me the remaining 40. Since I already know what the x and y represent, x represents 1 gallon, y represents 3 gallons, I can find the total. If I can find the total, I can find the value of G, because the total is always 4 plus G. Y is, oh, okay. Y is green. Okay, yeah, sorry. Nevertheless, so that's what I'm saying. So if I know 10 by 100 into G plus 4, I can find out G, and therefore I can find out 10 by 100 of G also, right? That's what I meant. Okay, that's my bad. Okay, thanks. The second statement, I think Z equal to 60, I know red. Since I know the number of gallons of red, I'll always be able to find out the value of green. Correct. That's why the answer is D here. Because the first one gives me information about blue and then connects it to green. The second one also gives me information about red and connects it to green. So what makes this problem solvable is the fact that you have 1 gallon of blue paint and 3 gallons of red paint. If these numbers are not given, you would not have been able to solve the problem here. Okay, so every problem involving mixture of 3 components is not a difficult problem. So don't go in with a mindset that because there are 3 components, this is going to be very cumbersome. Let's try another problem on 3 components. Go ahead, I'll give you 2 minutes again on this. This is an interesting problem. Again, it's an official problem which came, I think, in one of the older OGs, OG 10 or OG 11. I don't remember the exact OG, but definitely an official question. Okay, people, that is time. You can post your answers now. Okay, I got an A. Good. Most of it is A. Brilliant. Again, this is a simple question where you don't have to deal with all the 3 components at the same time, right? So you know your 56 pounds of alloy is the total. You know this is made up of 3 components: lead, copper, and tin. You're trying to find out how many pounds of tin are there. By weight, the alloy is 3/7 lead. So 3/7 is lead, 5/14 is copper. So you can just do 1 minus of 3/7 plus 5/14. The total is 1, out of which 3/7 is lead, 5/14 is copper. So this will give you 1 minus of 11 by 14. Therefore, 3 by 14. 3 by 14 of 56 will be tin. Can we find out the value of tin? Absolutely. First statement is sufficient. Second statement, by weight, the alloy is 6 parts lead, 5 parts copper. So I know this is 6 parts. I know this is 5 parts. So I know the total is 11 parts. If you are misled by the first statement had a 14 in the denominator. If you still have that in your brain, there's a chance that you will say that this is 3 parts. That is wrong. because we don't know what is the total of the parts. This one can be one part, two parts, three parts, any number of parts. Because we are dealing with the weight of something, and the weight of something need not be an integer. It can be a fraction also. And that is the reason why the second statement alone is insufficient, because we don't know how many parts of the alloy is tin. We only know about lead and copper. That is the reason why our answer here is A for alpha. So there are very, very few questions involving mixtures of three components where you actually have to use the weighted average equation. Even if there are three components, very often on GMAT questions, you'll only have to deal with a couple of components at a time, right? Or if you have to deal with all the three, I think the data given to you will be very simple in such a way that you'll be able to find out the third component very easily. All right. So when it comes to mixtures questions involving three components, I would recommend that you use your knowledge of ratios and fractions to simplify the numbers and finally find out what you want. Don't use the weighted average equation unless you have to. Okay, so with this, we move on to the last segment, removal and replacement. So I'll solve this question for you so that we understand how to go about doing the removal and replacement problems. After that, you can take over. Solution Y. So I have a solution Y is 30% liquid X. I don't know what liquid X is. It may be alcohol, some acid, some liquid, right? So 30% X, 70% water. If 2 kilograms of water evaporate from 8 kilograms of solutions Y. So you are removing water from the liquid, from the solution. You are removing water and you are pouring the solution. When you remove a component, right? If you remove only one component, you're removing 100% of that. But if you're removing the solution, for example, instead of saying if 2 kilograms of water evaporated, if I just said 2 kilograms of solution evaporated, okay? Can you tell me how much of X would have evaporated? How much of water would have evaporated? So 2 kilograms of solution evaporated. How much of this would be X? How much of this would be water? Remember, 2 kilograms is 2000 grams. So 600 grams would be X and 1400 grams would be water, right? So when you are removing a component, remember the ratio will still remain the same. You will still remove it in the ratio of 30% and 70%. The percentage would remain the same. Always keep this in mind. But fortunately, we don't have to deal with the situation here because we are not removing the solution. What are we removing? We are removing water, right? Okay, now 8 kilograms of solutions Y. So if I have 8 kilograms of Y, how much would be X? $2,400, correct. And how much would be water? Obviously 5,600. How much water did you remove? You removed 2 kilograms of water, correct? So how much water would now remain? You would have 3,600 grams. What are you adding now? You're adding 2 kilograms of solution Y, okay? 2 kilograms of solution Y has 600 grams of X. So you add 600 to this. Now how much of X do you have? You have a total of 3000 X. But remember, 2 kilograms of Y also has 1400 grams of water. So how much water will you have now? You will have 3600 plus 1400, that is 5,000 grams of water. So you have 3 kilograms of X, you have 5 kilograms of water. So what is the total solution now? The total solution is 8 kilograms. Question is, what percent of this new solution is X? So X upon total will be 3 upon 8, and 3 by 8 is 37.5%. So when it comes to removal and replacement, again, you'll have to use your knowledge of ratios and percentages to simplify the numbers, and always be careful of the language. A very common mistake that students make on this is they end up thinking that 2 kilograms of solution was evaporated. No. If 2 kilograms of solution was evaporated, then the answer would have been 30%, right? Because you are evaporating 2 kilograms of the entire solution, then you're adding 2 kilograms back, right? That would keep it at 30%, but that is the trap. Here 2 kilograms of water was evaporated. And that's why the answer is 37.5%. Why? Because you still have more X compared to the water. Clear on this? Any questions here? None. All right. So that brings me to the end of the 3 segments that I wanted to cover. The first one on using the alligation diagram to solve mixtures questions. The second one on dealing with mixtures involving 3 components. The third one, removal and replacement. Most of the questions that I showed you, excluding the first few examples that I solved, if you leave them out, all the remaining questions that I solved are either 700 level questions or 600 to 700 level questions, which are official. There was only one question which was unofficial that I picked from GMAT Club, and that was the question on the gold and the silver alloy. I really liked that question because of the fact that it was very, very close to an official question, right? And I also wanted to show you how you can use fractions in the alligation diagram and still be able to solve it. If you leave that out, most of the actual questions that you solve are official questions. All right, a lot of them were 700 level questions. So therefore, I know a lot of you are a little exhausted by now, physically, mentally, and that is the reason why I always put a challenger question at the end. This is like the challenger set that you do at the gym after you're done with all your exercises. Okay, so go ahead. This is the first challenger. I'll give you 2 minutes exactly on this. Okay, people, that's 2 minutes and a little over. Okay, B, interesting. E, okay. E, all right, a few more B's. Okay, I'll probably use the alligation diagram here, right? I have S1 variety of sugar, which costs $6 per kg. I have S2 variety of sugar that costs me $9 per kg. I'm mixing these two and getting another variety of sugar S3, whose price I don't know, right? Because I don't know the ratio in which S1 and S2 are mixed, correct? If 20 kilograms of sugar consists of A kilogram of sugar and B kilogram of sugar, sugar S1, sugar S2, is A more than B? Okay. Let us create the alligation diagram here. All right. So I have a 9, I have a 6, I have a X. Remember this 9 I think is S2, this 6 I think is S1, and X is the S3. So higher minus average, 9 minus X, average minus lower, X minus 6, correct? So I can say S2 by S1 is in the ratio of X minus 6 by 9 minus X. But now I know that the value of S2 is B and the value of S1 is A. So I know B by A is X minus 6 by 9 minus X, right? What is the question I'm asking myself? I'm asking, is A more than B? Right? So my question becomes, is 9 minus X more than X minus 6? So my question becomes, is 15 more than 2X? Or is 2X less than 15? Is X less than 7.5? That becomes the question. Partha, I have taken B and A as the weights only. The weights are always at the bottom, right? The ratio always represents the weights. I have taken the price at the top. The price is never taken at the bottom of the allegation diagram, right? The weights are always at the bottom. Okay, so we are trying to find out what is the actual question we are trying to find out. The actual question we are trying to answer is the average price of the mixture less than 7.5? That is the question we are trying to answer. Okay. Now, first statement. What is the first statement telling? First statement says A is more than 9. What is the value of A? 9 minus X. 9 minus X is more than 9. What does that tell you? That tells you that X has to be more than 0. Sorry, X has to be less than 0. That's not possible. Even if it is possible, if X is less than 0, does it mean X is less than 7.5? Another way of looking at the first statement is, if you say A more than 9, you can say A equal to 10, B equal to 10. So 20 kilograms can be equally distributed. So if you equally distribute the weights, you can say 9 plus 6 is 15. 15 by 2 is exactly equal to 7.5. So you cannot answer the question with a definite yes or a definite no here. If you say A equal to 15 and B equal to 5, then this may be less than 7.5, maybe more than 7.5. Okay, that's the easy way of looking at it. The first statement alone is insufficient. The second statement alone, the cost of 20 kilograms of sugar is more than $150, which means the average price is more than 7.5. So we are telling, is X less than 7.5? The answer would be a no. And therefore the second statement alone is sufficient to answer the question. The correct answer here is B for Bravo. If you did not want to do this, breaking down the question stem, right, you can still go ahead and use values like A equal to 10, B equal to 10, and still get to the answer. I was just trying to demonstrate how you can use the allegation diagram to still solve this question. Okay, with that, let's go to the last question. This is an official question again on removal and replacements. A slightly easier question, this being the last one. So I'll give you 1 minute, 30 seconds. Okay, the last question, people. Answers, please. Okay, delta. Good. Again, I think there's a little bit of a trap here. All of you seem to have, steered clear of the trap. So 10,000 gallons of a solution, which has a 5% sodium chloride by volume. So I have 500 gallons of sodium chloride. Therefore, 9,500 gallons would be water. 2,500 gallons of water evaporated from the tank So I removed 2500 water. So now I'm left with 7,000 gallons of water and how much? 500 gallons of NaCl. Okay, sorry, 7,500, not 7,000. So the percentage of sodium chloride will be 500 divided by 7,500, which is 1 by 15. 1 by 15 into 100 is approximately about 6.66. So the answer here will be D for delta. This is obviously a 600 level question. This shouldn't have taken you more than 1 minute to solve. Okay. All right. With that, so we are conducting these live at home sessions. Some of you may know it. I see a few names that I already know. For the others, I'll post the links in the chat box. There are some other links that you may want to have a look at. We also have a free video series that you can look up to. I'll post a link for all these things in the chat box. So these are the links. This includes the links to our social media channels as well. We are quite active on Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta, and YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel. So I've posted the links for these channels. Please follow us there and please like our posts. Thanks a lot for joining in on this session.